everyone, it's Diabetic Danica, and today I'm going to talk about how to avoid spikes after meals. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you're never going to spike after a meal. I do frequently. But these are a couple tips to hopefully help lessen the amount of times you spike or lessen the degree of the spike. Just general tips. Do not take this as medical advice, as always. I am a nurse, but you cannot receive medical advice or nursing advice through the internet. Like, it's a very specialized, specific thing. So go to your doctor or medical team if you want specific things for you, but these are just things that I do. So let's get into it. The number one way to reduce or avoid spikes after meals is pre-bolusing. And I did a whole video on pre-bolusing, so I'll link that below, but basically, pre-bolusing is when you give insulin anywhere between like 5 and maybe at the max like 30 minutes before a meal. Usually it's about 10 to 15. And this just makes it so that your insulin and your carbs kind of meet up at the same time, because your insulin, after you give it, takes a bit to start working in your body, and then you're eating right away. And if you eat and give insulin at the same time, the insulin is going to be a little bit behind. And so your blood sugar is going to do this, and your insulin's going to be trailing and catching up when it's already high, if that makes sense. A really helpful tool in pre-bolusing is a CGM, a continuous glucose monitor, because you can really see what your blood sugar is doing. And so if you see that little arrow start to go down, meaning that your blood sugar is dropping, you know that, oh, maybe I should start eating now and not wait even longer, because it's definitely time right now to eat. Another thing you have to be aware of with pre-bolusing is the slower foods. So for me, burritos, pizza, stuff like that takes a lot longer to work in my body. So I will not pre-bolus for burritos or pizza, because then my insulin will kick in before my food and I'll go low. So sometimes I even wait until after I eat for those things. It just kind of depends. But yeah, the biggest risk with pre-bolusing is, of course, low blood sugar, because there is a chance that your insulin will kick in before your carbs. Like too much before your carbs. Another thing with pre-bolusing is you have to be able to guarantee your food arrival. So if you're at a restaurant, it's probably not the best idea to pre-bolus, because you don't really know how long it's going to take to get your food. So I usually wait until the food is there, or sometimes I risk it. It just kind of depends. You can kind of tell how busy a restaurant is, right? So if you had to wait 40 minutes to be seated, or if you just see a lot of people around, maybe don't pre-bolus, because you might not get your food in time. But if there's like chips or bread on the table, maybe you'd feel comfortable doing that. Again, find out what works for you, but that's just something to keep in mind, that you have to guarantee that you're going to be able to eat within that time period. Number 2 way to avoid spikes after meals is be aware of fast carbs. So for this reason, I don't ever drink regular soda really, unless my blood sugar is low. Technically, I can have regular soda, but for me, it's just not worth it, because it hits my body so fast, the insulin can't catch up, and I'll definitely spike. I also don't usually drink regular juice. I'll have smoothies sometimes as a treat, or sugary coffees, but again, try to pace yourself. So if I order a milkshake with dinner, I try to drink it slowly, drink it over time, maybe take it with you on a walk. One time I ordered a super sugary coffee drink from Starbucks, and I took it with me on a walk with some friends, and I ended up not even having to bolus for it, because the walking exercise matched exactly how much I needed for the carbs, basically. Like, it brought me down enough and the carbs kept me up, and it worked out. That's not always the case, of course, but it's nice when it is. So try to pace yourself with the fast carbs. Don't intake them quickly, because the insulin just can't quite catch up. The number 3 way to avoid spikes after meals goes along with what I was just talking about, exercise. So whether it's a walk, whether it's a run, whether it's anything, can help decrease your spikes after meals, because the lowering effects on blood sugar of exercise. More so cardio exercise. Lifting tends to raise blood sugar is what I've heard. I don't really lift. Do you even lift? But cardio can definitely help to minimize spikes and just increase your insulin sensitivity as well overall. If you're in a healthier state, you'll be more sensitive to your insulin and all that. Number 4 way to help decrease spikes is to rotate your infusion sites, or also your injection sites in general. So any way you're getting insulin, whether it's through shots or pumps, you need to be rotating, because if you're in a spot that's not very healthy, like there's a lot of scar tissue because you use that spot over and over again, it's not going to absorb well, and if it's not absorbing well, the insulin's going to take even longer to work in your body than it already does, which means you'll spike even more. So definitely make sure you're rotating sites into good places and making sure that you don't build up scar tissue so that the insulin can work more effectively. And the fifth and last way, on this list at least, to minimize spikes is start off at a good number. So, okay, this doesn't really minimize a spike necessarily, but it does mean that however much you spike will be less impactful, I guess. So let's say you're going to eat a meal, and no matter what, you're going to spike 50 points with this meal, just because it's just how it is right now, okay? And you start off at 150. Now, 150 is a good number, don't get me wrong. But if you're going to spike 50 points, you're going to end up at 200. Again, not the end of the world, but 200 is high, right? But let's say you started off at 100. If you start off at 100 and you spike 50 points, you're only going to be at 150. Way better than 200, and you still spiked the same amount. So basically starting off at a good number means that even though you're going to spike the same, at least you're still within range and in a semi-good area of blood sugar. Because I've looked at my CGM before and I saw like, oh, I feel like I spiked so much after this meal. But if you look at it in perspective, it's like, well, not really. I spiked from 200 to 250. But if I had been 100 when I started, I would have only spiked to 150. So it wasn't really a big spike. It was just I started off already high, or already close enough to being high. So those are pretty much the 5 tips that I have of things that I do to help minimize spikes after meals. Yeah, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to. I make new videos all the time about diabetes, and leave a comment down below to tell me what you think, or if you have any more tips about how to decrease spikes. So I hope you guys are having a great day, and I'll see you soon. Bye!